There have been a lot of lies and misconceptions floating around recently thanks to the election, but a term that was only known in some clinical psychology circles has started to become more mainstream: gaslighting. Unfortunately, much like the term fake news, it's being diluted by overuse and is starting to mean just about any form of lying. But it's actually a far more elaborate, complicated, and deliberate system of lying for a purpose. So let's go about properly identifying this phenomenon before we effectively lose this word too. So first, let's just talk about good old plain lying.
Everybody lies.
As House famously said in just about every episode, everybody lies. It's just a matter of about what, and I would add how often. Let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Far and away, the biggest reason people lie is out of fear. Usually fear of getting into trouble. And while a lot of this could be as simple as lying to your parents about which friends you were actually hanging out with, or telling your teacher that your dog ate your homework, side note, that actually happened to me and I showed my teacher the shredded remains. Some of it can have some serious consequences. Lying on the stand during a trial could be prosecuted as perjury. Lying to the police during questioning could be obstruction. If you're the person in trouble, the police usually expect you to lie, so they've developed a way around that. Enter the lie detector, or polygraph, the most hated machine on the planet. Why? Because we all know it doesn't work, but for some reason we still rely on it when it's given to other people. And when someone doesn't want to take it, we immediately assume that they're guilty. Why is that? Well, mostly because A, the police want you to believe that the lie detector works, especially if you're the one who's about to be questioned, and B, the media. TV shows and movies like cop dramas or daytime talk shows need a deus ex machina in order to get the truth out of the bad guy. Lately, some of them have been switching over to truth serums, which were ruled completely unconstitutional in 1963 in the US because of the whole altered mind and giving a confession while under the influence thing. If you'd like to see how well truth serums actually work, you probably have one of the best ones in your kitchen: alcohol. But lie detectors are still a little hit or miss when it comes to the law. Some states allow them, some states ban them, some federal agencies mandate them, and some people on probation or parole are required to take them. So while we all know that they don't work, at least on some level we hope they work for other people. So how do these things supposedly work? Well, a polygraph measures physiological changes. It tracks heart rate, blood pressure, respiration rate, and skin conductivity. Skin conductivity? They also call it the galvanic skin response. Sounds super fancy, right? The person administering the test will always tell you about the super scientific things it's measuring in order to get you to, at least in the moment, believe that the machine works. Skin conductivity literally means how sweaty your fingertips are. The most widely used questioning method is called the controlled question test. At the start, the administrator will tell you to lie, and then point out on the machine that it was pretty obvious that you were lying. So now you believe that the machine works. On to the questions. All of your answers are simple yes or no. There are 3 types of questions: control or diagnostic questions, which are pretty simple. Is your name Kaylee? Are you currently in the seated position? Then there are irrelevant questions. These are usually bad things about your past that aren't part of the investigation. Have you ever lied to a loved one? Have you ever stolen anything? And then the relevant questions to the investigation. All of the questions are in a mixed random order. The polygraph is passed if your physiological responses to the irrelevant questions are greater than to the relevant questions. If they're equal, then the test is ruled inconclusive, and you might even be accused of trying to cheat the polygraph. The problem is, if you're innocent, anxious, and very adamantly deny that you committed the crime,
I did not murder him.
Hell, I don't want my toaster or my vacuum cleaner appearing emotional.
I did not murder him!
even if you're telling the truth, the polygraph is going to register that as more than the irrelevant question. Therefore, you're lying. The fear of false positives and the anxiety that comes along with it turns out to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and therefore the polygraph is no more reliable than a coin flip. In several high-profile cases, like the BTK killer, the guilty person actually passed the polygraph. Some say that trained polygraph administrators are no more reliable than untrained citizens at deducing whether or not someone is lying. A better method of polygraph questioning is called the guilty knowledge test. Instead of using yes or no questions, the person is presented with a multiple choice question where one of the options is something that only the guilty party would know. Was the victim stabbed, shot, or strangled? Was the victim shot with a pistol, rifle, or shotgun? The questions are slowed down so the person has time to think about each of the options, and their overall reaction to the guilty information is what determines whether or not they are guilty. There are variations of this test where after the question, the person is told the correct answer in order to rate the "oh no, they know" reaction. There are some methods of lie detection that are proving much more reliable, such as measuring ocular-motor functions, which you can't consciously control, or using an fMRI. The problem is that these methods are extremely expensive and nowhere near ready to use in criminal cases. So okay, enough about polygraphs and lying to get out of trouble. Most of the other lies that we tell are in order to protect someone or not hurt their feelings. We usually call these white lies. Thanks for the sweater, Grandma. Yes, this tastes delicious. Make no mistake, these are lies. The problem with white lies is if the person ever finds out that you are lying, you're going to be in way more trouble than if you had actually just told the truth. Because not only have you hurt their feelings, but you also lied about it. That's why I never tell any lies, not even white ones. What? Zoom out already. Somewhat more rare are lies for attention or sympathy. We all do this to some degree. The fish was this big, I swear. But the best example comes from pathological liars. These are the people that lie about having a famous dad or uncle, or having cancer, or that they were abused in order to look good or get more sympathy. They want to be seen as being cool, the hero, or the victim. All of these get them more attention. There are 4 characteristics to a pathological liar. The lies are always amazing. They never lie about something dull, but they are always within the realm of possibility. The lie is automatic and chronic. They will always lie in any situation. The motivation to lie is internally generated. No one is making them or teaching them how to lie. The lies always make the person look better or more deserving. A key point in identifying a pathological liar is that they know they are lying. If someone lies so much that they believe their own lies, they're no longer lying, they're suffering from a delusion. One of the first steps in diagnosing psychopathy is whether or not they are a pathological liar. All psychopaths are pathological liars, but not all pathological liars are psychopaths. The final reason people lie, although I'm sure someone will pick this apart and find a reason that I missed, is lying for personal gain. This could be as simple as lying in order to get someone's money, like a con artist, or as complicated as lying in order to increase power, like in government or business or even in a relationship. And here is where we finally get to talk about gaslighting. Gaslighting is a lying scheme used deliberately to control a person's perception of reality in order to maintain or strengthen the liar's control. Not all lies are gaslighting, and as I said before, if we overuse this term, it's going to become diluted and meaningless, just like what happened with fake news just a few months ago. It started off as just hoaxes and lies, but now it means any news I disagree with. But the reason gaslighting has become such a popular phrase as of late is because of Donald Trump and his surrogates. Before the last few years, gaslighting was a term only known in the clinical psychology world. It was the method by which an abusive spouse kept the submissive spouse in line, even to the point of making the abused spouse deny that there was any abuse or believe that they somehow deserved it. It got its name from a 1944 film called Gaslight, in which a woman is psychologically tortured and made to question her entire reality. We're going to look at 3 examples in order to explain gaslighting. First, the original perpetrator, the abusive husband. Sup? Second, a less obvious gaslighter, the cheater. Hello. Wait, is this thing on? And lastly, since he is the reason the term rose in popularity recently, Donald Trump.
Help. I'm gonna barf.
So the main goal of gaslighting is to get the person to question their own perceptions of reality and accept yours, thus giving you more power. In the husband's example, they are trying to get power over their spouse, so they're talking directly to their spouse in a confrontation. In the examples I'll give you of Donald Trump and his administration, he's not talking directly to the American people, but to reporters. But he is not attempting to gaslight the reporter. As some would say, he's trying to gaslight the American people. There are 5 tactics in gaslighting. Any one of these on their own is simply a lie. It's the combination, the elaborate and deliberate implementation that makes it gaslighting. And a person who is gaslighting will use all of them, not necessarily all at once, and in no particular order. Reject. Deny or reject the accuser's version of events. Ain't even like I hit you. What? No, we were just meeting up for some drinks.
No one had numbers because the National Park Service, which controls the National Mall, does not put any out.
Diminish, marginalize, or reduce the accuser's claim. You're admitting that it happened, but not to the degree that they think it did. I barely even hit you. If I wanted to hit you, trust me, you'd be in the hospital. It didn't mean anything, not like when I'm with you. It was just a fling.
Could you hear the voices from the Women's March here in Washington? We know there were more than 1 million people who turned out, and you are their president now too.
That's true.
Could you hear them from the White House?
No, I couldn't hear them.
Alternative. Offer an alternative example that's much bigger or much worse than what they're claiming, thus further diminishing their claim. You're acting like I went all Chris Brown on Rihanna or something. It was just one night with a friend. It's not like I'm sleeping with hookers at a motel.
But you're going to have a large crowd on Friday too, which is mostly pro-life people. You're going to have a lot of people coming on Friday. And I will say this, and I didn't realize this, but I was told, you will have a very large crowd of people. I don't know, as large or larger. Some people said it's going to be larger.
Blame. Accuse the accuser of bias or being the cause of the event. Sometimes you just make me crazy is all. You know how you get. Well, maybe if you weren't at work so much, I wouldn't have to look around for attention.
Photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
Pro-life people, and they say the press doesn't cover them.
I don't want to compare crowd sizes
No,
again.
you shouldn't. But let me just say, what they do say is that the press doesn't cover them.
Assure. Reassure the accuser that your version of events is the correct one by using a statement they should already accept. Come on, baby, you know I would never hit you. Come on, baby, you know I would never cheat on you.
But I have to also say, we just had an election a few weeks ago, and they voted in many cases. In some cases, they didn't vote, I imagine. And we did have an election. With that being said, absolutely I have a responsibility to everybody, including people that didn't vote for Donald Trump.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
All 5 of these tactics used in tandem will cause the victim to question their reality and the evidence of their eyes and ears, and accept the alternative reality supplied to them by the gaslighter. The spouses in the first 2 examples, and as some people say, the American people in the last example. They will also begin to reject any evidence that contradicts the reality they've been indoctrinated to believe, thus giving the gaslighter even more power. It should be noted that not everybody is susceptible to gaslighting. The victim has to be relatively unintelligent or unaware, in the dark, so to speak. As Maureen Dowd said in 1995, you cannot gaslight someone who is already a little lit. As I said, any one of those on their own is simply a lie, or an alternative fact. No, I'm not falling down that rabbit hole. Calling it an alternative fact is just a way to diminish the accuser's claim that they are lying. It's one of the tactics of gaslighting. So now that you know all about lies and gaslighting, make sure that you're using the terms correctly, and make sure that others are using them correctly. I understand that tweeting back to someone and saying that's not gaslighting, that's just a lie. Gaslighting is an elaborate system of lies used for control, is the kind of hair splitting that might get people to dislike you. But if we allow the term to be diluted and diminished, we are actually helping the gaslighting process. So hopefully now, you know better. Hey guys, this video is a combination of requests from Carpe Noctem and Battle. If you have any suggestions for future topics or have a request for something to be explained, leave them down in the comments or find me on Facebook or Twitter. But if you like this video, you learned something, make sure to give that like button a click. If you'd like to see more from me, I put out new videos every weekend, so go ahead and gaslight that subscribe button. I recently had my schedule shift around a little bit, so while I still plan on putting out videos on Sunday, sometimes they might come out on Monday. At least until I'm able to get my time management skills back in order. In the meantime, if you haven't been getting notifications that my videos are going up, make sure that you click that little bell next to the subscribe button. And if you'd like to watch one of my older videos, how about this one?